Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's get started with today's story. She said it the way someone cancels a dentist appointment. I don't love you anymore. No fight, no trembling lip, no tears. Just words, flat and final, that I remember staring at her, waiting for a follow-up, a reason, a nervous laugh, a correction. Nothing came. She stood by the window, arms crossed, face unreadable. I didn't ask why. Didn't raise my voice or beg. I just nodded once and said, all right. Her name was Clara Wynne. We'd been married for 11 years, which is long enough for someone to memorize your habits. How you fold laundry, how you hum when you're nervous, how you hold silence like a shield. She looked relieved after she said it. Like she'd been rehearsing the words for months, and now that they were finally out, she could breathe again. I went upstairs and packed a small duffel bag. No rush, no panic. Just methodical movement. Shirts, jeans, my old wristwatch, the pocket knife I used to take camping. I folded everything neatly, as if I was checking out of a hotel room I'd stayed in too long. When I came back downstairs, Clara was still by the window, pretending to look at something outside. She didn't turn around when I left. The air outside smelled like rain on dust. I walked to my car, tossed the bag in, and drove until the gas gauge blinked red. By then, I was 2 hours from the city, somewhere between nowhere and forgetting. I pulled into a small town called Ashwood, the kind of place that felt paused. One main street, a diner, a barbershop, and a hardware store that still used handwritten receipts. A flickering sign outside an old boarding house read, "Rooms available." The owner, Mr. Keene, opened the door before I even knocked. He had a white beard and a limp that made each step sound deliberate. "You look like you need quiet," he said. He wasn't wrong. Morning, I had a small room above the local print shop. One window, one bed, and a silence deep enough to drown. And I found work at the Ashwood Library, reshelving returned books and fixing jam drawers. No one asked where I came from. No one cared. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. 3 weeks passed before I heard from Clara again. The first message was a photo, my old watch, the one I'd forgotten on the dresser. Caption, "You left this." I stared at it for a long minute, then deleted it. 2 days later came another text, from a number I didn't recognize. "You still fix broken things, don't you?" That was something Clara used to say when I repaired pipes or patched walls. Or when I tried to fix her bad moods. I didn't reply. Ashwood was the kind of town that swallowed sound. Mornings, I opened the library with a cup of bitter coffee. Evenings, I sat by the window above the print shop, listening to the hum of the neon sign below. Across the street, a woman ran a small cafe, Iris Loron. She always had soil on her hands, even though she made coffee, not plants. "Try this," she'd say, handing me something new each morning. One day, she gave me a small cactus. "Low maintenance," she smiled. "Like me." I didn't have the heart to tell her I hadn't kept anything alive in months. For a while, it felt almost peaceful, a quiet routine built out of leftover pieces of myself. Until one night, as I was locking up the library, my phone buzzed again. No caller ID. Just a voicemail. I pressed play. No words, just the soft hum of static, and somewhere faint, a sound like dishes clattering on a counter. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, heart stuttering. I knew that sound. Our old kitchen. The same ceramic plates we bought at a flea market our first summer together. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window until dawn, staring at the dark street below, half expecting a car to stop and a figure to step out. But the road stayed empty. The next morning, an envelope waited on the library's back counter. No return address, just my name in careful handwriting. Inside, divorce papers. Signed, dated, sealed with quiet precision. No note. It was like she was erasing me. Efficiently. I signed my part and mailed them back the same day. No hesitation. No message. For the first time since that night she said it, I thought it was truly over. But endings are liars. They always pretend to be final, until something whispers from the past and reminds you that ghosts never stay buried. It showed up on a Wednesday. A plain cardboard box, no return address, my name written in tidy handwriting. The kind that used to label our moving boxes years ago. Inside were fragments of another life, a movie ticket stub, a faded photograph of us on the coast, and a keychain shaped like a compass I'd lost 2 summers ago. No note. No explanation. Just a memory scavenger hunt I hadn't asked for. I stared at it until the sun dipped below the horizon, then sealed it back up and left it by the library dumpster. I told myself that was the end of it. 2 nights later, as I walked home, I noticed headlights parked across the street, a gray sedan, engine idling. When I turned toward it, the lights blinked off and the car rolled away. Coincidence, I thought. But coincidences don't leave shadows that long. The following evening, my phone buzzed. A message, "You cut your hair." My hand froze midair. I trimmed it that morning before work. No one saw me except the librarian on duty. No one who had my number. I emptied my duffel bag, shaking every seam loose. That's when I found it, a small black disc, no bigger than a coin, sewn into the fabric. A Bluetooth tracker. I crushed it with a wrench. The sound was small, almost polite. After that, I started keeping notes. Times, dates, strange noises, unfamiliar cars. It wasn't paranoia, it was record-keeping. I stopped walking the same route twice. Changed the locks. Slept with a lamp on. Clara had signed the divorce papers, but it was clear she hadn't signed off on letting go. I avoided Iris. She didn't need to be drawn into my unraveling. Still, she'd wave from the cafe, her smile patient, unaware of the quiet war I was fighting in my head. One night, I came home and felt it before I saw it. The air inside was wrong. Heavier. Still. The door was slightly ajar. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. But on the counter sat a chipped ceramic mug. Clara's mug. She'd used it every morning for years, navy blue with a crack running down the side. Next to it, an old kitchen timer ticked softly, set to 11 minutes. 11 years of marriage. I stood frozen, listening until it clicked to 0. Then silence again, thick and absolute. A photo lay on the floor. It was of me and Iris outside her cafe, laughing about something I couldn't remember. It had been printed recently. Someone had followed us. I called the police. Officer Lena Dre arrived an hour later. Tall, steady, the kind of tired that comes from too many similar calls. No forced entry, she said, jotting in her notebook. Probably someone you know. Maybe an ex trying to send a message. She broke in, I said. Officer Dre shrugged. Nothing's damaged. You're not hurt. File a report, change the locks again. And that was that. When she left, I sat staring at that mug until the first light of dawn crept across the floor. Some people end things quietly, like closing a door. Others stand on the other side and keep knocking, waiting for the handle to turn. Clara wasn't gone. She was circling. And the silence she'd left me with, the one I thought was peace, had become something else entirely. It was a warning. A week passed without another message. I almost let myself believe it was over, that maybe the mug, the photo, the car, were all just the last desperate echoes of something dying out. Then the motion camera at the library caught something. The night guard, Eddie, showed me the footage on his monitor the next morning. Grainy black and white, timestamp 2:17 a.m. The side door of the library flickered into view. A shadow moved across the glass, tall, slow, familiar. It stopped for several seconds, just standing there. Then, a pale face leaned close enough to fog the window. I didn't need to see clearly to know it was her. Eddie glanced at me. You know her? I lied. No idea. That night, I didn't go home. I sat at the all-night diner 2 blocks away, staring through the rain-smeared window until sunrise. When I finally went back to my apartment, the cactus Iris gave me was gone. In its place sat another object, my old wedding ring, perfectly centered on the table. No note. I called Officer Dre again. She arrived with the same calm detachment. Doors locked, windows intact, she said, scanning the room. Maybe you misplaced the plant. I didn't misplace a cactus, I said. She gave me the same patient look people reserve for the almost believable. We'll file it, Mr. Hale. But unless she threatens you, there's not much to do. After she left, I sat there and realized something. Clara wasn't trying to scare me randomly. Each thing she left had meaning, the mug, the timer, now the ring. She was reconstructing our life, piece by piece, inside my silence. That's when Eddie handed me a business card. Call this guy, he said. Private investigator. Discreet. The name on it read Miles Carter. We met at a roadside diner that smelled like old coffee and rain. He was older than I expected. Calm, clean-cut, the kind of man who never raises his voice because he never has to. He listened without interrupting, just nodding occasionally. When I finished, he said, You want her scared off or stopped? Stopped, I said. Then you'll need to let her make a mistake in public, he replied. Let her show her hand. People like her need witnesses. I hated the idea, but he was right. I'd left quietly the first time, disappeared without confrontation. She'd taken that silence as permission. So I reopened my social media, which had been dead since the split. Posted harmless things, a photo of the library window, a cracked guitar, a cup of coffee on the cafe counter. Within a day, new accounts started following. Blank profiles. No pictures. Then the comments began. Still fixing things, I see. You always liked quiet corners. Her voice, wearing different usernames. Miles traced them all back to the same IP address. Clara's. She's watching everything, he said, sliding the report across the table. You need to end this in person. Somewhere public, controlled. Once she shows up, we can make it official. I didn't want to see her again. But running had only made her chase harder. So I agreed. We picked a cafe near the courthouse, neutral ground. Miles would sit nearby, unseen but present. Clara always liked control. I'd let her think she still had some. When the day came, I almost didn't go inside. My hands shook when I saw her through the window, thinner, pale, hair tied back too tightly. She looked up and for a second, her expression flickered, relief, fear, hunger, I couldn't tell which. Then she smiled. And I realized she'd been waiting for this moment since the day she said she didn't love me. The cafe smelled like burnt espresso and rain. Miles sat 2 tables away, pretending to scroll his phone, every inch the picture of disinterest. I sat facing the door, hands wrapped around a cup I hadn't touched. Clara arrived 15 minutes late. She always used to do that, enough time to make sure I was waiting. She looked smaller. Hair darker, eyes hollow. When she spotted me, something flickered across her face, the faintest shimmer of triumph. "Hello, Rowan," she said softly. "Clara." We stared at each other across the table. For a moment, it almost felt like a memory trying to pretend it wasn't broken. Then she smiled, brittle, like something sharp hidden beneath. "You look different," she said. "So do you." She nodded, tracing her finger around the rim of her cup. "I didn't think you'd agree to meet. You didn't leave me much of a choice." Her smile twitched. "You got my things then?" "The mug. The timer. The ring." "I just wanted you to remember what we had," she whispered. "You left so suddenly. I didn't get to say goodbye." "You said it just fine," I replied. "You don't love me anymore, remember?" Her eyes flashed. "I didn't mean it. I wanted you to fight for me. You just walked away." "I walked away because you pushed me out the door." Silence thickened between us. Miles watched from across the room, pretending not to. "I wasn't myself," she said finally. "Everything got so quiet after you left. The house, the mornings. You broke into my apartment, Clara." She flinched. "I just wanted to see you. To see if you were happy." "By planting trackers? By following me? By stealing my ring?" Her voice cracked. "I thought if I reminded you who we were." "Stop pretending this is about love," I said. "It's about control. You can't stand that I don't need you anymore." Her hand trembled, then curled into a fist. For a heartbeat, she looked lost, a person suddenly realizing they'd built their world around someone else's shadow. "I was angry," she whispered. "I thought if I hurt you first, it wouldn't hurt so much when you left." I leaned forward. "You wanted me to fight for you. But I don't fight people who burn down houses and call it love." Tears gathered in her eyes. "Then what's left for me?" Miles stood, approached slowly, and placed a folder on the table. "Ms. Wynne," he said calmly, "this is a no-contact order. Continued communication or approach will be considered harassment." Clara's face drained of color. "You hired someone to spy on me?" "No," I said. "I hired someone to stop you." She stood abruptly, chair scraping against the tile. "You can't just erase me, Rowan. I kept you alive in that silence. You wouldn't even exist without me." Her voice cracked in the middle of the cafe, and for the first time, she looked scared, of herself more than of me. "Let me keep something," she whispered, shaking. "Just one thing that's ours." "You lost that right," I said quietly. She stared for a long time, as if memorizing my face, then turned and walked out into the rain. Miles exhaled. "That's the hard part done," he said. I wanted to believe him. But as I sat there, staring at the empty chair across from me, I couldn't shake the feeling that Clara hadn't left for good. She didn't know how to. For the first few days, there was only quiet. No calls, no texts, no strange cars idling outside my building. I slept through the night for the first time in months. Miles checked in once, said the restraining order had gone through, that the police would handle anything else. Officer Dre called a week later. Clara had agreed to therapy as part of the court's decision. I thanked her and tried to sound relieved. I was, mostly. Ashwood began to feel like home again. I helped Iris rearrange the cafe shelves, fixed the creaky library steps, started playing my guitar in the evenings. Nothing grand, just soft notes filling the space that used to echo with worry. Your shoulders aren't as tense, Iris said one morning, sliding me a cup of coffee. Maybe they forgot how to be, I smiled. For a while, that was enough. Then, 2 months later, an envelope appeared on the library counter. No postage, no name, just for Rowan written neatly in the center. Inside was a small USB drive, wrapped in tissue paper. I knew I shouldn't, but I plugged it in. The screen filled with silent clips, me walking to work, unlocking the library door, standing by my window. Always from a distance. Never inside. Miles took the drive and turned it over to the police. 2 days later, Officer Dre called again. They found her laptop, she said. 2 cameras. Notes about your daily schedule. My stomach turned. Is she? She's not in custody, Dre said carefully. But she's agreed to stay out of town. The court will monitor her therapy. For now, she's gone. For now. Those were the words that stuck. Weeks passed. Then months. Slowly, the fear faded. The air in my apartment began to smell like coffee and sawdust instead of tension. I still flinched when the phone buzzed at night, but less each time. Iris noticed the change. You finally look like you're not waiting for something bad to happen, she said. I think I'm not, I replied. And I almost believed it. By spring, life had settled into something simple: work, quiet, and the slow comfort of routine. Iris and I started running a small weekend stall by the square, secondhand books from the library and potted plants from her cafe. People came and went. Smiling faces, normal conversations. Things that didn't carry ghosts. One afternoon, as I was packing up, I found another envelope on the counter. No one had seen who left it. Inside was a single sprig of rosemary, pressed between 2 pieces of paper. And a note. This was the only thing I kept alive. Goodbye. See. I stood there for a long time, the street quiet around me. No anger, no fear this time. Just something that felt like release. That night, I walked down to the riverbank and planted the rosemary in the soil near the water. The current whispered softly as it took a few petals downstream. Clara was gone for good. I knew it the same way you know rain has stopped, not because the sound ends, but because the air finally feels still. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just arrives one morning when you realize you aren't holding your breath anymore. Sometimes, I still think about that night she said, "I don't love you anymore." It used to sound like an ending. Now, it sounds like the start of everything that finally made sense.